Hello, it's Jay here again and welcome to another tutorial. So, today we're going to work on the sun rotation. However, before we do, I actually made a mistake in my last video. So, if you come to the void start, here, autumn day length is equal to night start time minus dusk start time. I'm sure you've all noticed that this should have been the dawn start time. So let's just change that there, and we'll change the comment also. Now, I'm sorry about this. I had been awake all night when I recorded the last video, so I'm blaming the fact that I was tired. I don't know why I thought dusk was right for this. It should have always have been dawn, but never mind. Let's just come to the seasons manager and we'll swap out the variable. And let's swap it out for the comment as well. So let's just copy. We'll paste that in. And again, and one last time. So let's save that off. And that's the errors now fixed, and I'm going to come right to the top of the script here. I'm going to create a couple of variables. Now, before I continue, there is a script on the Unify wiki that allows for a sun rotation, and of course anybody can use the scripts on the Unify wiki. Now, we're going to do our own expanded version of the rotation. So it's not going to be the same. We're actually going to use a little bit more code that's going to tie in better with the actual rest of our script. So it will be similar, but it won't be exactly the same. We have made quite a bit of changes, and we've also added quite a bit of code as well. But with that said, let's create the variables. So we'll say private transform, give it a naming convention of underscore sun pivot point. Let's close the line off. Into the comments we'll say the rotation pivot for the sun. We'll say private int, and we want underscore center of game world. And I'm going to give mine a value of 250, which I'm going to explain in a moment. But let's get the comments into place first, and we'll say let's say a value to define position at the center of the scene. I'll just save that there a moment, and we'll downsize mono develop, and let's come to the terrain. So if I click on the little gear icon here, you can see my terrain width and terrain length, which is a value of 500. This value for center of game world should always be half of these values. So if you have a value of 1000, then this should be 500, and so on. So please bear in mind this value will be different for each and every one of you based on your terrain scale. These two values here. So with that said, and in fact, let's create the game object we'll need now. So we'll create an empty game object. I've already created a tag for sun pivot, and we'll give it the same name, sun pivot, and we'll just reset the transform. So we need now, if we come to the void awake, and let's have a look here. we'll come at the very bottom, and for the sun, so we're actually altering the position of the sun here, so we can just say transform.position. This is attached to the directional light, our script, which acts as our sun as well. So no need to grab a game object, just transform.position, and we're going to say equal a new vector3. Let's open and close brackets, we'll close the line off. I'm actually going to enter there, because this line will be quite long, so we'll just say in the comments position is equal to, in fact let's put at the front sun position is equal to, and in fact let's get the code in the brackets as well. So we'll try center of game world, comma 0, comma underscore center of game world, and I'm just going to enter here after the open brackets. Let's put the comments in. So the comments will read a sun position is equal to a new vector 3 position. Let's bring that back at these, in fact let's just say at this position. So X, Y and Z, we don't need to have a value for the Y, but X and Z, we're going to move the game object, or center this game object at this position. And what we want to do is actually back it away slightly from the center of the game world. Now, because the center of the game world is half the terrain width, and we want the sun to come up at the terrain edge, we can do that quite simply. Right, let's come here and yes, in fact I put this in brackets. Let's put the first center of game world in some open and close brackets, and because we're working on divide by 2's, we can just say times 2 to get back to the edge of the terrain. So I hope you all understand that, but that's where we're positioning the sun. And we're going to say transform dot, and we want local Euler angles, and we're going to say is equal to a new, and of type vector3. We'll open and close brackets, we'll close the line off. Inside the brackets we're going to say 0, comma minus 90, comma and 0 again. Let's get this into the comments. So we'll say sun's rotation, and that's why we use this local Euler angles rather than position. This is what we need to call when we're setting rotation. So this sets position, this sets rotation. So sun's rotation is equal to, let's just say these values. And what you can sort of do is come, if you put the brackets in, and what I like to do is just do like X for X for X. And we'll just save that off there, just so you don't have to keep altering the code should you need to alter these values. So let's come to the void start now. And now we need to actually grab or get the sun pivot game object. So let's do that now. I'll put this at the bottom for now, I think. So inside the void start, we're going to say game object with a capital G underscore, and we're going to say sun pivot, and we're going to say GO for game object is going to be equal to game object with a capital G again, dot, find game object with tag, make sure it's the singular, not the plural. Open and close brackets will close the line off, inside the brackets, little speech marks, and we need to use the tag of sun pivot. And this must match up exactly with the tag, not the naming convention, but the tag itself, and that includes the capitalization. Otherwise, this will not work. So please be aware of that and make sure it is exact. So we're going to put this into the comments and we'll say sun pivot game object is equal to, next line is equal to find game object with, and let's put it into the little speech marks, sun pivot tag. I don't think we need to put find, you know, we're finding it with this. So some pivot game object is equal to game object with some pivot tag. I think that will do nicely for the comment. So the next line, we're going to say underscore, and we want the sun pivot point is going to be equal to that here. So let's get this into the comments and then I'll explain it hopefully a little better. So sun pivot GO dot transform. Let's close the line off and we'll put in the comments caches sun pivot point position. So we get the game object with the tag. And then what we say is that this private variable here, which is of type transform, is then equal to that game object and its transform, which is probably the most important part. So I hope you understand that. We could have done it by defining it as a public variable and just assigning it in the inspector, but I like to show you different ways of doing things, and this is a great way of doing it without cluttering up your inspector, which in ours is getting quite out of control as it is. And yes, we will be setting some of these others to private at a later date as well. So let's come back to the void start, and we're going to say sun pivot point dot transform dot position is going to be equal to a new vector 3. So this now, the sun pivot point, which is equal to the transform of this game object, we're going to actually position it where we want it when the game starts. So that's what we're doing now. So we'll come to the end of the line and we'll open and close brackets. We'll close that line off there. And we're going to say center of game world, comma, 0, because we don't need it moving up or down on the Y, but we do need by center of game world as well, and that should position it right in the middle of the scene. So let's just enter there, break it up for commenting. We'll say at the top line, we'll say sun pivot point, and in fact let's come to the beginning. We'll say set sun pivot point, and let's enter here after the first open bracket again. Comment, set some pivot point to a new vector 3, next line, and we'll say at this position in the brackets, center of scene. We'll just save that off there. So we're just making sure we've got our pivot point in the scene. When the script starts, we'll get that game object and we will set it to where we want it to be. We're also going to make sure that our rotation is right for the sun and that the sun's position is also where we want it to be also. So everything's sort of set up, and I think pretty much going to leave it here for this lesson. Let's just get one more thing in place, and I'm just thinking probably where's best to put this. Let's put it after the seasons manager. You can put it where you like. I'm going to put it here for now, and we're going to say void sun rotation manager. Let's open and close brackets. We'll open and close again, and we'll just get our debug log in place. Let's just copy this one from the function below, which is done. Let's copy and paste in the naming convention, and all we need to do is call this in the void update. So yes, we'll just call sun rotation manager. We'll open and close brackets, close the line off, into the comments, call, just paste that in again, sun rotation manager function, and we'll save that off there. And in the next video we'll actually begin to fill out this function so the sun actually moves. So at the minute, if you hit play, this directional light may be in a funny position and you may not get the actual lighting working properly, because it's going to reset and it's going to be exactly perpendicular to the terrain, which isn't a great way of lighting it. In fact, it's absolutely terrible, but please bear with it, because that will all be fixed in the next video when we actually get code into this function. So as I said, I think we'll leave it here for now. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope to see you next time, and until then, as always, bye for now.